everybody. I told you we were going to do Norwegian Lefse one of these days, and today is that day. So right now we're just getting everything together. We're pre-measuring all of our ingredients, right, Izzy?
Yes.
And then I'm going to talk with you about how you set up for this. So I'm reading this. We were featured in our local newspaper many, many years ago. And gosh, it's been a long time, right, Abby? 6 years ago. And they had published my father-in-law's flour lefse. So in other Norwegian areas, typically you'll see potato lefse. It's pretty uncommon to see what we call hard lefse around here. It's kind of unique to this little region around us, the Story City, Iowa type area. Everybody else just has potato lefse, which is mashed potatoes, butter, and flour. But here we do flour lefse or hard lefse. And the cool thing about this is it's like a Norwegian tortilla, and people dehydrate it and then they rehydrate it when they're ready to use it. So it can literally like sit for years. So for this, it's just a very basic recipe. It's 8 cups of all-purpose flour, which I have here. We have 3 cups of boiling water. We have 1 cup of shortening, half a cup of sugar, a tablespoon of salt. And that's it. And when we mix it together, it's going to be a very, very hot dough. And that is very imperative because when you're rolling out lefse, you want them to be super thin. And if you have it nice and hot, you will get that thin roll. So we actually have a towel, and then we have plastic wrap that we will put over the dough just to help keep it warm and keep that moisture in. You will also need, I'm just moving stuff out of the way here. We have a lefse griddle. Now, the thing about this is it gets to 500 degrees. You need this to be really hot. I couldn't tell you what to use for an equivalent except for maybe a big cast iron skillet. You could try a griddle. You could get creative, but typically you make lefse on a lefse griddle because it does achieve that super high heat. We have a very grumpy toddler today. Oh my goodness. So we have, this is called a lefse flipper. It's a little Norwegian lefse flipper. It's just, you use it to scoop and flip your lefse. We have a regular rolling pin, which you'll do your initial rolling of your lefse with. And then we have the texturing pen, which you'll roll over it with that to give it a neat texture that holds all your butter and sugar and stuff. And then this is our lefse board. You've seen me use this before. It's a round board with a canvas cover. Kind of unhappy with how the company's been doing them lately. They've had a lot of fuzz on them and it's just gross. So I think I need to learn to sew these myself because I addressed it with them. They didn't really have anything good to say. I just think that they're buying cheaper fabric, and it's just, their quality's really gone down. And it's kind of sad because as far as I know, I don't think anybody else makes this stuff. It's specialty items made here in Iowa. You could also use a cutting board with like a cotton pillowcase on it. That's what my father-in-law did. You need something fabric to roll out the lefse on, and it'll make sense when I'm doing it. And then that's pretty much it. We have a cooling station at the table with cooling racks, and we have a fan. So we'll dust off the flour. And some people like fresh lefse, which we like fresh. So yeah, it's just a Norwegian tortilla. And some people like it dried. So I'm actually trying to keep my son from burning himself on a 500-degree griddle. We also have the food dehydrator that you've seen in other videos that I use for doing long-term dry lefse. So we're gonna get started, and I'm gonna get my child away from this griddle because he's making me super nervous. Okay, so step 1 is we are gonna heat up this 3 cups of water to boiling. I add my sugar and I add my salt to the water. Now what we will do is bring this up to a boil, and some people use milk, but I use water. Bring this up to the boil, and when it comes to a boil, we'll dump the Crisco in and just stir it until it melts. Sometimes I'll just keep it cooking for just a moment because you want that water scorching hot. It makes the dough very pliable, and you achieve that super thin roll that you need for a good lefse. So what we're gonna do is just stir it up, and we'll wait it to come up to a boil. All right, Izzy Beth is very carefully putting in that cup of shortening.
Definitely carefully.
Definitely carefully, yes. Okay.
It's stuck on the spoon.
Just turn off the heat and then you can start stirring and it'll melt right off that spoon. So what we like to do at Christmas time and sometimes Thanksgiving is we have fish and lefse. So what you do is you cook you up some cod. My in-laws always would boil the cod and then you serve it with butter, salt and pepper, whipped potatoes and peas. And what you do is you just like make a little Norwegian burrito. You put your melted butter. Oh, Abby says more like a taco. I guess that's true. It's more like a taco. That you put your melted butter, and you have to have a lot of melted butter because you just do. You just do. And potatoes, peas, and then you put your codfish in there. And it sounds really simple, but it is like crazy delicious. And it's such a wonderful holiday tradition. My husband introduced me to all this because, you know, I married into a Norwegian family. It turns out I'm more Norwegian than he is, though. I thought that was kind of funny. Anyway, so for dessert, you have butter and either white or brown sugar on the remaining lefse. Or you can have that on your potato lefse, or potato cakes is what my father-in-law called them. So it's it's exciting. We always look forward to it every year. This last year we did not do it because we had the virus, which will not be named. And I told these guys they were lucky if they got any food that day. So this year we don't have any such issues. Knock on wood. Here you go, Izzy. Knock, 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 knock. So this is ready for the next step. All right, Izzy, I'm going to have you hold the camera. We're going to go over to the brown bowl. And I need, Abby, hand me that metal spoon, please.
Which one?
The one without slots. There you go. All right, so we're going to come over here. This is careful. This is actually my bowl of flour for rolling the lefse. So I kind of make a well down inside of the bowl. And I actually have a specific lefse bowl that my mother-in-law gave me, but it's in storage somewhere. All right, so you pour this all in. Again, keeping in mind it's very hot. I'm gonna go put the pan back on the stove. And then I'm just gonna start stirring it in. And hot is definitely the key. I've been doing these long enough to know that if they cool down too much, they start to get tough and really hard to work with. So it's important to maintain as much heat as possible. That's why I'm using a nice stoneware bowl. And that's why we're going to wrap and cover it in a towel just to help keep that heat in. It's that imperative. So there comes a point here where you either have to keep kind of kneading it with your spoon or get your hands in there. I've done it so many times, I'm probably gonna get my hands in there in just a minute, but you wanna get it to come together pretty well. You can see it's really starting to go. And then you can kind of like knead it with your spoon until it comes together in a dough. You don't really knead it like bread dough, but you do wanna get it into a dough ball. So let's see if I can use my asbestos fingers here. And asbestos fingers, yep, that's what happens when you cook with hot stuff long enough. You didn't know that, Abby? You didn't know your mama had asbestos fingers? Of course it's a thing amongst chefs and bakers. All right, so.
No.
So now I'm just getting all the flour in. I caution you at home, I probably wouldn't do this unless you're very familiar with working with hot stuff. You can and will get burned. Okay, so just be careful. Okay, well I can't say you will get burned because maybe you won't, but you very well could. So very, very high probability of getting burned if you're not careful. So if you do decide to get your hands in there, just do it quick. I leave it in the bowl just until all of that dry stuff is incorporated. And boy, you can hear our Lefse griddle over there singing right now. Okay, so I feel like we're about there. It's kind of like if you've ever made homemade Play-Doh, this is pretty much the same texture, and it's actually kind of the same technique. You generally use hot water to make it boil up into a ball. All right, so this is what we want it to look like. It's very soft, very pliable. I mean, it's almost shaggy, but you can see it's a ball. Now I just pulled it out. Man, I tell you what, I'm so good at losing things. Yep. I have 1/3 of a cup measure, so this is what the amount that I use to roll out the lefse. So I just push it in there, and I have 1/3 of a cup ball. Then I do kind of like I would a roll, where I kind of like pinch the bottom in. And what that does is makes a relatively smooth ball to start with, and then we'll roll it out. So for now, I'm going to put plastic wrap on, keep that heat in. You're going to need copious amounts of flour for this project. Copious. And you want to keep plastic wrap on. It just helps keep the steam in. Right? And then I'm going to put you all on the stand, and we're going to get started rolling. First things first, you want to make sure you have a relatively uncluttered work area. And you want to flour the heck out of whatever cloth it is that you're using to work this. Now, everybody rolls these a different way. I'm just showing you the way that I do it because that's the only way I know how to do it. So we got lots of flour on our board. I'm going to take that little dough ball, and the first one is usually the one that we have to sample, you know, just to make sure it's not poisoned or anything. Yeah. And then I actually like to dip mine into my flour bowl. And I put on, just flatten it a little with my hand, give it a quick zhuzh like that, flip it over, and then when you're rolling these, or this is with tortillas too, try to keep rolling one direction. Don't, that makes it tough. So I'm constantly rolling from the center outward, and I like to turn my board. You don't have to do that. You can turn the dough, but I find for me it works better. Don't be shy about flour. I mean, you don't want to go crazy, but you want enough so it's not sticking. And see how I just keep going around in a circle with my rolling pin. I'm not pushing horribly hard. You don't need to, because you've used that nice hot water, so your dough is pretty soft and pliable. So you keep going around till you're about 12 to 14 inches. Now with this board, it's easy for me because I go until I can see the writing. I don't know if you can see that, but I can see the red writing coming through, and I know that that's thin enough for what I want. My edges are uniform, and I take my texturing pen, and I start at the middle and I go outward, and then I start at the middle, go this way, and then I turn it that way, that way. And now the young lady here is going to lift it up with the Lefse flipper, and it's going to go over to, see how beautiful and pliable that is? It's going to go over here to the griddle. You unroll it, and then it's going to cook on this very hot griddle for about 45 seconds to a minute on the first side. Then it's going to flip, and it's going to go the second side. It's a pretty cool process. You should really try it. It's a little bit different because you do have to have some specialty equipment or be very creative, which I know a lot of you out there are. So, you know, if you do decide to do this, please let me know what you did to make it successful. So she is going to work on that, and I'm going to work on rolling out another one, because once we get rolling, this is a pretty fast process. All right, so she's flipping it, and then you can see it's got these beautiful, beautiful little speckles, just like a tortilla, and you can see the texturing in there. That'll hold lots of butter and potatoes. So once this is done, she'll take it and put it on the cooling rack and brush off all the flour, fold it in half, and cool it down. Here's the finished product. So we got 3 dozen out of this, and it's considered a dozen because when you buy packages, the rounds are cut in half, and a half round is considered a piece. So these are all, this is 6 rounds, but it's actually considered a dozen. And I dry mine out, fold it in half just like this, and the dehydrator, and then it gets split along the seam here when it's time to serve. So these are going to get packaged up fresh. All right, so I just wanted to tell you briefly, the process for this is you're going to want a bath towel. Here I had a little dish towel, which is clean, by the way. It's just that we do a lot of stuff and we run them through the wash constantly. You want to have a paper towel inside, and for the dry left, so you want to either run them under warm tap water or have like a tub of water to dip them in. It'll take like 30 to 45 seconds, and they'll start to get nice and pliable, and then you put them on a paper towel, and then you'll run the next one through, put another paper towel on, and keep doing that until you're all done with them. And the combination of the water, obviously, and the warmth of the water, and just having them kind of steaming in the towels like this will help them soften up. If they're still a little bit on the leathery side, you can always run them under the warm water a little bit. And it's just really that simple. It's such a neat process. I really hope you enjoy. Oh, it's soft they are. Absolutely scrumptious.